willing to participate. Karen is out today. She ended up needing to travel down to California to be with her family for a health issue. And so she, likely won't be joining us at all today. But today's group is going to focus on the attorney practice routines. Alina, thank you. It looks like she has started the recording. So just a reminder that this is a public meeting and it is being recorded. And Gloria, thank you for being willing to take notes for us. That's been invaluable. So we are, just so you know, even though the sessions that we have at noon are really intended for your comments, your feedback, OPDS, we're going to keep our input to a minimum. We'll certainly help facilitate, keep things moving along, but this is really our time to hear from all of you. But know that we are documenting everything, and we will have one more meeting. We have one more meeting scheduled for September 9th. And at that meeting, we will come back to you with sort of a summary of all of your recommendations and your input. Gloria will do her data magic and show us essentially everything that's, the comments that have been made. And then we'll actually be able to recommend revisions to the practice routines, which that's been the whole emphasis of this group, is what is your feedback and what will we do with that feedback to make this document more user-friendly for everyone, both case managers and attorneys. So I wanted to just start by going through just a reminder of the ground rules. This is active participation. I'm going to ask anyone that wishes to participate to raise their hand using the hand raising function. I'm just not going to be in a position to be able to call on everyone unless I see a hand raised. If however you have any difficulty with that technology, just speak up and we can certainly get your input that way. Again, just reminders that let's speak one at a time. We don't want to be interrupting anyone while they're trying to get their thoughts out. Be candid and respectful. Let's try to stay focused on the topic or question. As in past sessions, if a topic comes up that isn't really relevant to this discussion, we'll table that. We'll put it in what we've been calling a parking lot. And so again, Gloria will notate those things for future reference, but probably not something we'll be able to spend time on at this session. Active discussion is limited to these meetings and cannot take place over email. I think we've covered that before. Because it's a public meeting, that's a requirement. And then again, we'll limit our OPDS input. And you can remind us of that if that's not the case. Purpose of this session, like I mentioned, we're going to talk specifically about the attorney role. As you know, our last session was spent on the case manager role, and that was really helpful. You all gave us a lot of good feedback. So we've got that all documented. This time we're, really going to focus on the attorney role in the interdisciplinary relationship. And then we've talked about next session summarizing and moving on to next steps with revisions of the practice manual. So this is really what we're going to discuss today. Do the practice routines capture the tasks expected of an attorney to be successful in an interdisciplinary team? In a minute, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Dana has offered to pull up the list of practice routines, and it'll show you which of the attorney roles you've already provided input via email in the beginning. And then hopefully by the end of today's session, we will have marked the other categories that we didn't yet have input from you on. So in the end, we'd like to have input on all of those. Today's session may or may not take up the whole time because there's not quite as many roles on the attorney side as there are on the case manager side. But at a minimum, we have to, at the 1 hour mark, we will have to be done with today's meeting. And then the other thing that's really helpful, because there are a lot of us in this group, is if you can identify when you raise your hand to speak, if you can please first identify the number of the practice routine that you're referring to. And in a minute, actually, I'm going to go ahead. I think that, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And so Dana's going to start sharing hers, and then it'll make more sense as you see those practice routines and the numbers associated with them.
Yep, just give me 1 second. I have too many things open on my computer right now.
No worries. While Dana's doing that, does anyone have any questions about anything really before we get started? I'm happy to try to address anything while we give her a minute to get her screen up. Like I said, this is the focus of this group is on this meeting today is on the attorney role, and then next week we'll sort of do a final wrap up. But I'm happy to if anybody has any comments, concerns, anything for the good of the order. All right. And we did send, I know Alina sent out another copy of the practice routines yesterday, so you should all have that, the full document for your reference. Is that big enough for everybody to see? Okay. So again, using the raise your hand function, looking at these practice routines, does this capture the tasks expected of attorneys? What would you add, refine, or remove? And we'll do our best to track your input in the right, according to which practice routine you mentioned. Paula.
Hi, I just wanted to clarify. So if there's an X, we're not commenting on those ones today because we've commented.
No, that's sorry. I should have clarified. Thank you for bringing that up. The X just simply means that we already did receive input via email. If you are someone that provided that input, feel free to expand on that or just talk about what you said in your. We're not going to actually share your individual email comments that you gave us. But it is helpful if you're someone who commented on that via email feedback, feel free to share that with the group. But you're welcome to talk about anything that already has an X on it. But we also, by the end of this meeting, I'm hoping that we will also cover those that haven't yet received input on. Does that make sense? Alan.
These all look pretty comprehensive as far as the way it goes. I'm not sure how other counties do this. In Lincoln County, the attorneys, we've worked together for years and years and years. In fact, a lot of times we'll put our heads together and decide who needs the case manager most, which is the one parent that has either the most likely to get the kid back in a hurry or to the one who needs the most help to get anywhere. And so usually shelter hearings aren't very helpful as far as having case managers there. But shortly thereafter, once we get a handle on the case itself, that's when they're really very helpful, and it go from there. One thing we do have a problem here with, I would say a problem, or at least an opportunity to improve, is case managers aren't recognized by the courts or DHS. And everything that Carol gets from us, in this case, comes through the attorney. I guess there's a couple of people that are, helping her out as far as giving her notices of things and sending her stuff. But if the state had a better idea of, or DHS and courts both, of where these people actually are in the process, would be helpful.
I do see, I want to call on the others with their hands up, but I did want to just, I just wanted to ask about something that Alan mentioned. We do hear, I have heard that, from different case managers and attorneys that it's helpful to have case managers on board at shelter or as soon thereafter as possible. Is that sort of universal amongst this group? Or I hear Alan saying you're not necessarily sure if they need to be on board. At least I thought that's what I heard you say. Kathleen, do you have a response to that? Whoops, Kathleen, I think you're on mute if you're talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. now I
Okay,
can hear.
great. Sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I don't usually know at shelter that I have a particular client who is going to benefit most from a case manager. And since there's very limited availability of case manager services in Benton County right now, I'm really titrating that very carefully. So I don't know before shelter that we're going to need a case manager. But I usually know pretty soon after shelter, once I've had a chance to meet with the client and hear what is presented to the court at shelter. So it's not too far into the case before there's a clear need identified usually. What I ran into in Benton County is that I have invited case managers to attend the hearings. I do that on a regular basis. The court will not elevate them to party participant status. The court keeps them in another status. I don't know exactly what they call it, but the case manager can't participate. They're muted. They are not able to comment or interject anything. I don't think that's inappropriate. That would be true if we were in court in person too. They wouldn't be in front of the bar, they'd be behind the bar. So I don't have a problem with that. The only time the case manager is going to participate at court is going to be if under some unusual set of circumstances, the case manager ends up being called as a witness, and hopefully that's going to be extremely rare. So I don't have any problems with the way things are currently unfolding in our particular county. I do think it's important for the case manager to attend court each time the client they're working with has an appearance, because they will hear things that will be important for them to help the client with.
Veronica and Paula, I know you both have your hands raised. If that's to make general comments on the bigger question, I'll certainly come back to you. But if you wanted to speak on this particular case managers being available at shelter, feel free to chime in.
Okay, well, this is Paula, and the way we get our assignments here in Yamhill County, we're getting them probably, if we're lucky, an hour before shelter. And so realistically, even though it might be a great resource to have the case manager meet the client, because that's one of the most likely times for them to be physically in court, particularly with all the COVID rules. It's not realistic. And then my prior comment had to do with the, I kind of agree with Lincoln County. It's such a finite resource, the number of case managers that each county has, that, if everybody just kind of scoops them up right away, then we're not using them necessarily on the best, person or, person who needs that kind of advocacy, in the case. So that's why the wording of number 2 has always concerned me, is because I think that, experience shows we don't want attorneys scooping up the case managers and then getting them conflicted, because they've already, worked with their client, and then that client turns out to be a non-entity in the case, and, another parent, because sometimes we have multiple parent cases, would have been better served by having that case manager.
Agreed.
Thanks, Paula. Alan, did you? Oops, I think you took your hand down.
I was just going to basically say what Paula just said. So yes, it is a finite resource.
And then Dawn.
We just recently had the discussion about bringing case managers on at our prelims. Prelim process in Multnomah County is an all afternoon experience. If if you get appointed to a case. And given the finiteness of our resources, having a case manager, our case managers are in-house, though if we're going to experiment with them being on call and available if we get the sense that they would be helpful to us at prelims, but we're not in a situation where we think just having them at prelims without knowing more about our client situation, and if it is a case that's going to need a case manager, that we should have them at every prelim ready to go for us on the case. But Veronica is our in-house case manager. She might have some more ideas. She was helping us plan our pilot project.
Thanks, Dawn. Veronica, did you want?
Yeah, this is Veronica. All I was just going to add to that too is we had kind of spoke about having maybe like a checklist of sorts to for the attorneys to kind of look through to just identify certain things during the prelims, like to see if we would be needed as a case manager. And we're just working on kind of coming up with that now, but just wanted to add that in there.
Okay, thanks, Veronica. Kathleen, did you want to come, or did you still have your hand up from before, or did you have another comment?
I didn't still have my hand up. Do you have to take your hand down? I'm sorry, I'm not
Oh,
super familiar with
yes.
this platform. Do you have to unmark it?
Yeah, if you
Okay,
just
great.
click it again, it unmarks
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, so thanks for that input. Now we can go back to just the broader, anybody wanting to comment on any routine, but just please identify the routine when you start speaking. Veronica. Whoops, you're on mute, Veronica.
Dang it. I unraised my hand, then didn't put myself off mute. I just wanted to speak briefly about number 4. And I don't think it needs to be changed or anything, but I just wanted to speak to, I think, how important that is. And I know it's not always possible to meet first thing with everyone together. But I do just think that's so helpful for everyone to be on the same page and, you know, make a list of tasks so everyone's on the same page. And I think that that also can play into number 3 a little bit too, and just, you know, on just discussing what our role is as case managers. You know, and so the attorney and the case manager and client can really understand what the role is and what the tasks are, and if client is willing to work through those things, and if not, then that can be figured out at that meeting, and then, you know, we can take a step back if the client's not really willing to work through that or doesn't want to be contacted by a separate person. So yeah, I think those 2 are super, super important.
Great, thanks, Veronica. Alan.
Going on number 3 and what Veronica's talking about, I did criminal defense for years and years and years and years, and I see the case manager role similar to what it was with investigators. And you get a private investigator. I wish we had in-house, but we don't have enough people here to have an in-house investigator for the place for all of the attorneys. But at the same time, I think that when it becomes obvious a case manager is needed, I think that that's when the discussion is best, to tell the client, here's what this person's role is, and they are going to be our best friends. I think we need to encourage them to work as close, if not closer, with the case manager than with us. I mean, over here, Carol, she gets stuff done for the clients that need to be done, and then she tells us what she's done. And I mean, we put a lot of faith in her because of our years of experience with her, but just the same, I think that the attorney can tell the client that this case manager is their best friend and then support the relationship they develop. But it's important to get that, once you made that decision that I'm going to be a case manager in, to take every chance you have to build up this person as an asset and to have the client have confidence in them. But without that, a case manager is worthless.
Thanks, Alan. Jordan.
Mine isn't so much about the practice routines. I think they all look really good. I think it's more a question for attorneys who do not have in-house case managers, of what would make it easier to be consistent with these practice routines. And in particular, I think I'm thinking of like 7 and 8, and 6 actually, because it's a lot of, I learn a lot from clients and not from the attorneys, which then puts me in a very awkward position of having to kind of like backtrack and catch up with the client on important case updates that I feel like should have come from the attorney's office, or chasing down links, things like that. And so I'm just curious, and I don't know if the attorneys who have in-house case managers can shed some light on, practice routines they have when it comes to sharing information with their case managers. I just, and I know this is kind of like an all across several counties problem, and it's been some of what we've talked about in the past with like, how do we get DHS to send us things? Can we be part of the e-filing system, all that stuff? Just finding a more cohesive way to make sure that we are kept in the loop and sent links and invited to hearings and things like that, because we only have access to so much, and so without that additional support, it's very difficult to be proactive in our role if we're catching up via the client or not being invited to like really important meetings and court and stuff like that.
Dawn, do you or anyone else on here that has in-house case managers want to, I see Ryan has raised his hand. Ryan, do you have comments on that for Jordan?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have, well, there's two components. One is getting the information to the case manager at the beginning when they're first assigned. So because I'm in-house with the Arneson Log firm, they have an internal server that I have access to. So all the discoveries there at my fingertips already. But even with that, the way they do it is a little bit more difficult to manage than what I'm used to, the systems I've created for myself. So we have a system here in Douglas County where we, as soon as we're assigned, we notify a particular staff member. She's the discovery clerk, and we just give her the case number and the name of the client, and she puts us in ORCIDs as a case participant, and that allows us to be invited to FEMs and other things that they just see us as a member of the case. And then it starts some of the invitations. And then also she starts sending us discovery directly. And all the case managers, including the other contracted providers in Douglas County that are not in-house, get that discovery as it comes out. So we don't have to rely on the attorneys to get it. And that has just completely changed our practice down here. It's been wonderful. The other thing I would say is that it's kind of related to number 6, I think. Mine aren't numbered. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, number 6, establish regular communication and share information. That sometimes when a case has been going on a long time, let's say it's heading to TPR, there's 2,000 or 3,000 pages of discovery. It's really helpful for the attorney to identify. We kind of know which key documents to look at, the last court report and some 307s and things like that in the petition. But there may be something else that's real critical in the case that would be helpful for the attorney to identify those documents ahead of time, so we can not have to read all 3,000 pages of discovery.
Great, thanks, Ryan. So Dana, I'm seeing a black rectangle on your document. Is anyone else seeing that?
Yes.
I am.
Yeah, it's just kind of blocking part of the document. I wonder if it's getting smaller.
Weird. Does it go away at all? I don't see that.
It seems static.
Okay. I don't know. I don't see it. I see my Teams window, but I don't see. Would it be better to I don't know what to do.
I mean, it's okay. If it doesn't shrink down any further, when you scroll up like that, you can see all the practice routines. So
Like-
I think as long as you scroll up when you're identifying
Okay.
a particular routine, we can
you
see what you're
minimize
marking.
Can you minimize your Teams screen?
Here we go.
Yay,
It's
thank
fun.
you, Gloria.
Thanks, Gloria. Okay, so yeah, if everyone can see the screen, the practice routines are numbered, so that should help you in identifying which one you're referring to. Paula, you've had your hand raised.
Am I off mute? Okay, thank you. I wanted to comment on, getting the case managers invited to things, because our county's been doing this for a long time. In the very beginning, DHS was very suspicious, but then once they saw, how good and helpful case managers were, it's my experience out here that our case managers get invited to absolutely everything, including CRBs, and that you don't even have to work very hard because DHS is saying invite this person to the the FDMs and the everything that's scheduled in a case. As I said, including I suspect they're letting CRBs know, that the case manager is there and getting the invites for them as well. So I'm just saying, I think getting the buy-in from your DHS area, local DHS is the key to getting everybody invited.
I wonder if that needs to be broken down like to a per county conversation then, because I know it looks very different in Multnomah County than it does some of the smaller ones when it comes to trying to reach out to court staff and have that stuff set up. So I feel like having, and I'm thinking of Multnomah County in particular because it's one of the, if not, yeah, the biggest one, having like a Multnomah County specific meeting where we could talk about that with the courts and figure out what that would look like, especially because it's such a new county. I think that would be a little bit more productive to actually hear from the folks in Multnomah County of what that would look like if we could get on that system that I think it was Ryan was talking about, because that would be ideal. That's exactly like what I was asking, and like, how do we make this easier for attorneys, because we're missing a lot of information. Then we have to nag attorneys. That's not fair to attorneys. Like, it's just a lot of back and forth that I feel like could be avoided if we could streamline the system or the process somehow. But I think it does need to be discussed county by county because staffing looks so different in each one.
Thanks, Jordan, and I apologize. I was trying to call on you, but I had put myself on mute because my dog was barking, and she's barking again. Okay. Kathleen.
Hi, thanks. So I'm not finding in Benton County that we're having difficulty getting DHS to communicate with the case manager and include the case manager. Generally, they're pretty good at that once they realize she's on board. At least the ones that have cycled through the county so far have given me that feedback. And in terms of us getting the case manager access to our files, that's pretty easily done. I do that the same way I do for our clients. We have a my case system, like which is like Clio or a lot of other data management systems for attorneys. I just trigger her access to the files I think that she needs to see. That may not be the entire case file, but there's certainly a lot of documents she needs to have a look at, and I can trigger that for her. Just like I can for the client, then she can go in and look at the documents, review the petition, she can review the case plan, she can review, basically anything else we get from DHS feedback from our clients, providers, service providers, et cetera. So we find that to be a pretty good way to communicate back and forth, I think. I haven't heard any complaints yet about lack of access to information. I know all the case managers that have worked for me so far have been pretty busy with their caseloads. And I think that getting them the right access to the right documents at the right time is really kind of my goal.
Thanks, Kathleen. Paula, is your hand still raised, or did you want to comment again?
Yeah, I just had a comment for Multnomah County, because it just occurred to me something that we did very early on in the program, and Dana may remember this too, is that, and this is way back when Amy Miller was around, but we actually met with the person who was in charge of our local DHS at the time. Again, the supervisors there, along with Amy Miller, and I don't remember if Dana was there or not, but we talked about the what we were going to be doing with the case managers, and how the local DHS, asking for them to, kind of help facilitate, their being able to be involved in the case. So I don't know if that helps Multnomah County or not, but we actually had a meeting with DHS.
Thanks, Paula. Gentry?
Hi, guys. Hopefully you can hear me. I haven't tried this at home yet, and I got my internet fixed. So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Perfect. Yay! He had to add some more screws to the roof. So I just wanted to say in Clatsop, yeah, the attorneys just tell the caseworkers that I'm on, and then I'm also adamant. I do have issues where when I'm advocating for someone, and then the case worker will go directly to the mom and ignore my emails. So I always follow up with, hey, I haven't heard from you on this. So I have to be very adamant about working with the caseworkers and saying, if I send an email, I'm expecting a reply, because I am, like talking to the attorney basically. And so I think you just have to, if you're having backlash from that, you really have to be adamant and keep on those caseworkers until they start, remembering to include you, or just go back to the parent instead of including you. So I think that's the main thing, is just be adamant and keep following through. And if you send something, I just go back to my sent documents and I say, hey, haven't heard from you, yada, yada, yada. And that really keeps it informed that way. And if I'm having a lot of problem with, the caseworker saying, oh, the parent said this, or the SSA is saying that, then I also do a lot of text chains with, especially for visitation, because there's so much he said, she said of visitations. So it's really nice to keep a text chain with the SSA and the parent and the case manager, so you can just kind of see where those things are following. So I think it seems like I'm kind of doing some redundant work, but I feel like you have to kind of teach them that you need to be respected a certain way because you're on the case and you're advocating for the parent. So I just always stay really adamant and stay up on those caseworkers, and then eventually they come around. But every once in a while, I still have a couple of caseworkers that still try to just like, oh, ignore you're even here. But I guess that's the main thing, is just to be adamant and to follow through.
Thanks, Gentry. Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that all of this feedback is really helpful. And I know, because we're dealing with both the roles of the case manager and the attorney, we want to make sure that we are, in fact, really focusing on the attorney role in this particular session. So to the extent, I guess one of the things that comes to mind when I hear Gentry's comments is, to the extent to which the attorneys, and I think that is where we started talking about this, can help facilitate that. And so I don't know if any other attorneys want to comment on that, or other case managers on how their attorneys have helped facilitate that. Oh, Dawn.
At MPD, what we generally do is we send an email to the caseworker and to any other service providers right away, CC in the case manager, letting them know we put a case manager on board, who they are, what their contact information is, and that they should be looped in any communication. And that if the case manager reaches out, that they are working for our client with us on a case and that they need to be invited. And if we start seeing something that isn't, it's our practice to just nudge the worker again with the reminder, hey, they need to be looped in. They're assisting me on this case. And, Veronica can speak. I don't think anybody's been intentionally ignoring that. Occasionally, we do have to remind them to send the invites out. And then the discovery, I think, again, we're in-house, so it's a little easier for us, but it's available to the case managers, and we don't want to have them be overburdened with things that they may not need to read, because sometimes we do have thousands of pages, but their work with the client really only necessitates them looking at maybe 50 pages or 100.
Great, thanks, Dawn. Kathleen, did you have another comment?
No, it was another instance of me leaving the hand up. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure. Jody Russell.
Hey, so I just wanted to speak for both Polk County and both Benton County. I know I've worked with some of the attorneys also in Lincoln County, and they've all been really good about having someone in their office do an email as soon as you get a referral that has everybody on, including DHS, sometimes CASA, to say this is the case manager on this case. And then sometimes throughout the cases, attorneys have had to just add me to the email, and they'll send an email to DHS that says, hey, I see you left my case manager off. Please make sure you add her to all emails. So I think the attorneys are not learning, but they're remembering more often to make sure we're added to the emails, and to communicate with DHS and CASA to remind them that this is the case manager on the case, include her in any and all emails. So I think as the months have gone by, it seems like the attorneys are remembering, and I know they're busy, to make sure that we are added, and that someone in their office has reached out to everybody to let them know that we are the case manager on the case.
Thanks, Jody. Gentry, did you raise your hand again, or is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I hit it. I'm trying to move the little bar so I can read number 9, but I guess I hit the raise thing. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so it looks like we've actually touched on most of these, which is really helpful. I see that it looks like number 1 and number 9, maybe we haven't covered yet. So let's just, I guess I just want to make sure we've got about 15 minutes left in our session. So number 1 is identify appropriate referrals using the PCRP referral guidelines, and use that referral form and send, identifying the county in the subject line. Any comments, questions, concerns about that? Is that working okay for everyone? And again, this is mostly from the attorney perspective. Alan?
Yes, I think it works just fine. In fact, I tell my assistant we need to get Carol or Jody or who we're using on this case, and 10 minutes later, the form's ready to go and in it goes. I think it's a great system. It's easy And I don't think it's broken, so we shouldn't fix it. And number 9, I'm kind of not sure why that. I think that should almost be established when a case manager is being hired, and their ethical duties and responsibilities are pretty clear from the onset. So why it needs its own line is kind of beyond me, but maybe it needs it. That's all.
Thanks, Ellen. We can come back to number 9 here in a second. Kathleen, could you have a?
Sure. Yeah, I wanted to comment on line 2. I agree with that. I agree with Alan about number 1. The current referral system is working just fine. Same thing in our office. My legal assistant can get that done in just a few minutes. The training of the case manager in regards to attorney-client privilege and confidentiality, I assume a lot of that happened between the case manager and OPDS, and that when they come on board, they're already aware of those requirements. And that's just like a baseline level assumption I'm making about their preparedness to do this work. And I have not been having separate conversations with them regarding those ethical responsibilities. So if that's something that you expect the attorneys to do, I think we should have a subsequent conversation about that.
Yeah, so I can comment on that. I can tell you that OPDS does have, even in the interviews that we conduct with new case manager applicants, that is one of the things we cover, is how different that role is, how different that role can be from what they're used to if they're a mandatory reporter. So we do start that conversation early with them. I'm certain that Dana also covers it in the training, and Dana can certainly chime in if she wants to, but so in terms of, I believe it's on there just simply because of how important it is. So I guess my question to the attorneys on this group would be, have there been any concerns with that? Do you feel like the case managers you're working with don't understand the importance of that role and the distinction between them being a mandatory reporter and reporting on their own like they would have before versus them reporting to the attorney now in this role? Paula?
I was just going to say, I think when it comes up for me is that when we're in a delicate area, I might remind my my case manager, okay, this is something where, if it comes out well for the client, we're running it up the flagpole. But if it doesn't come out well for the client, this is like a pocket psych eval or something like that, then then this is not something that we're talking about. So it's just when there's something where it's a big deal, I'll take a moment and remind them. And every single time that ever happens, the case manager I'm talking to always says, yeah, I knew that. So that's just where it comes up.
Okay, and I need to clarify because I was thinking number 9. When I reread that, I just realized that we're talking about the attorney-client privilege specifically, not the reporting, not the reporting function. So I don't know, Dana, do you want to speak as to whether and to what extent you cover any of that in the training?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, all PCRP case managers go through an orientation training, pretty much the majority of a full day, where we cover a lot of information out of the practice routines document. We definitely spend quite a bit of time talking about attorney-client privilege and, confidentiality. We've even had subsequent trainings. Nora actually did one with our group this year on that. So yes, it is a topic that we cover in case manager training. I think I would also just say, I think maybe from my perspective, I see attorneys maybe just kind of like Paula mentioned, revisiting it when certain situations may arise. We've had case managers that work there's one for the mom and one for the dad, and parents are aligned, and the attorneys have authorized there to be some communication in case planning around that. And as we all know, that can shift if certain things happen in a case. And so I think in those types of situations, it would just be good to have the attorney revisit that if case circumstances had changed.
Thanks, Dana. Alan?
With respect to number 9, I guess we've been kind of spoiled. We've had 3 case managers we've worked with extensively since this process started, and all 3 are extremely competent. They know where the rules are, and they know where the boundaries are and what they're supposed to do. In fact, number 9, when I'm trying to talk the client up to trusting this person, I emphasize that fact that there's an attorney-client privilege between the case manager and you, the same it is with me. And whatever you tell them is as deep and dark a secret as if you told me. And I think that's, for me anyway, that's been one of those aha moments for clients to go, oh, okay, well, it's someone I can work with then. Like an investigator with criminal defense. It's kind of the same basic thing.
Thanks, Alan. Dawn?
Part of our training is I have a book that was written by a social worker that works with some organizations in the East Coast that is social work for criminal defense lawyers, and there's a chapter in that talks about the attorney-client privilege. But I also think it is attorney-client privilege and mandatory reporting requirements are enmeshed. When we brought on a former DHS worker, the training was much more detailed around attorney-client privilege and the difference with the mandatory reporter situation, because we are mandatory reporters as attorneys, but we have an exception there, and making sure that they understand that. And I think once we know that Shannon does the training, we have the materials that are put out by OCDLA. The Oregon Criminal Defense Lawyers PCRP program, which are great. And we have the social worker book that has the chapter in it that talks about it very well. And then I think when we have cases that are very sensitive and the issues might be more unique or in our face, we try to remind our case managers, just check in with them a little more regularly about that issue.
Thanks, Dawn. Carol?
In that respect, I have, sometimes cases change and you get kind of muddled into possible breach of that confidentiality. I always take the posture of check with the attorney first before you move forward with any situation like that. It hasn't happened very often, but it could.
Great, thanks, Carol. Matt?
The only thing I'd add on this, first of all, I feel like every case manager I've dealt with has had really good instincts for what information from a client to communicate. Haven't been bitten on anything so far. It's really been, it's been great. What always worries me is my clients and case managers are having lots of conversations with each other that I don't know about. And then I'm having case managers having a lot of conversations with DHS caseworkers that I don't know about. And every time there's a discussion that a case manager has with a DHS caseworker, that is revealing protected client information. And I don't know if case managers would really, I don't know if like the theory of case managers would really work if case managers were asking permission from an attorney each time before they wanted to have contact with a caseworker. But, I guess I just, think what's happening is caseworkers are making independent decisions about what is protected and what they're allowed to divulge outside of contact with attorneys. And that is scary. I haven't been burned by it, but as long as that's happening, there's the potential for that to happen. And I don't know how you resolve that other than requiring case managers to converse with an attorney every single time they're going to talk to somebody else. And like I say, I just don't think that's really realistic. But, I'm not having conversations with case managers about, previewing what's going to be disclosed before it's happening.
Thanks, Matt. Dawn?
The other thing that I think I would speak to about this when I work with my case managers, which I see as related, but not everybody might, is that making sure that my client understands that there is no privilege between my case manager and the client. That the case manager is going to tell me anything they learn from the clients or from other people that they talk to or other interactions that they have. That the case manager is coming back to me and telling me things to make sure that there's a good script in place if the client tries or wants to create a relationship with the case manager that is separate from the attorney-client relationship.
Kathleen?
Thank you. I want to follow up on what Matt was mentioning. I hear some discomfort in his statement there regarding the fact that, you know, as part of their jobs, the case managers are having a lot of conversations with DHS personnel and others where they are potentially revealing what would otherwise be protected client information. And I share some of that discomfort. I heard that loud and clear because I have the same concerns. We're here today to talk about the attorney routines and practices, but these practices intertwine so much. I just want to throw out there that I think there needs to be an emphasis for the case managers on communicating with the attorney regarding what the content of those conversations they have with the DHS are, because I often don't feel like I know enough about what those conversations have covered. And I think it is really important because we're in this weird gray zone. If you don't have an in-house case manager and you're relying on an independent contractor the way we are in Benton County, there are some really odd aspects to that. And I suspect, I don't know if Matt is in the same boat I'm in or not, but it's different when you have an in-house case manager and they're employed by your firm. The amount of we have to be careful as attorneys utilizing independent contractors not to assume the role that an employer would assume for a lot of reasons. That it's a different relationship. And so our ability to exercise supervision and control over the case managers is limited in a way that it's not if they're an in-house case manager. And so also I think that impacts the protections that our clients' communications have with the case managers receive. And I have some concerns about that too. And if that is a topic we could put on the agenda for our last meeting, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Thanks, Kathleen. Alan?
To that point, before law school, I spent 10 years working in rather large corporations and businesses, and there's a concept that you got to delegate. If you're managing, you have to delegate, and you can delegate authority, but you can't delegate responsibility. And I think if you have somebody working on your behalf, it's your job to make certain that they know what the parameters are, but you got to have confidence in them to take care of business and do what they're supposed to do. That comes down to training, I suppose, mostly comes down to communication. As I said a few minutes ago, in Polk County and Lincoln County, we've been spoiled because we've had some incredibly competent and still do case managers that I don't really have any problem with them revealing things they shouldn't reveal or talk. They kind of know how this game is played. But I think it comes down to training, and then you have to delegate the authority to get the job done and work on communication. But I think if we tried to second guess and micromanage the case managers, we don't need them because we're doing the work too. So it's difficult, Matt. I understand that, and it's something to always be aware of. But I think training and communication is how you get around that particular concern.
Thanks, Alan. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. I see Paul, I'll call on you in just a second. I just wanted to make sure that everyone that wanted to say something had a chance to speak up, whether it's about this particular topic or any of the other routines. Paula, did you still have a comment?
Well, I was just going to follow up on what Alan just said. And I was going to say it really goes to number 4, which is that if you're meeting with your case manager and they're understanding the case strategy, then that also helps with their communications on you and your client's behalf, is because they understand the case strategy or where you're going, and as I said, what cards to hold close to the vest, and and what you can talk about.
Thanks, Paula. Okay, well, that's our time is up. Thanks everyone for participating today. Like I said, we will certainly take all of your input. Gloria's been taking notes, and we've got the recording. We'll follow up before the September 9th meeting, just as to let you know exactly what we will be talking about at that meeting. And as always, feel free to, although we can't have dialogue versus, via email, if there's something that you'd like to see on the agenda for the last meeting, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.